So, let's learn about access specifiers in this video. A class, in very simple terms, consists of two parts: variables and functions, right? From now on, let's refer to them as members of the class. So, anytime I say members of a class, I'm basically referring to the variables and methods of class, okay? Access specifier applies to members of class, so variables and functions can have access specifiers. Access specifier, as the name suggests, defines the accessibility of that member. It tells us where all a member can be accessed, okay? A quick note: access specifier doesn't apply to local variables. It can only be used with instance and static variables, okay? Java has 4 access specifiers in lowercase: public, private, default, protected. The default access specifier is different from the default keyword of switch case statement. They are completely different. Let's begin with public access specifier. Members that are public are accessible everywhere, literally. Such members can be accessed in all classes and packages. There's no restriction. Class C1 is in package p1.p2. It has variable a and method f1. They are both public. Another class, C2, is in the same package. It has a public method display. In it, object of C1 is created. Using this object, the function f1 and the variable a are accessed. Are lines P, Q, and R valid? We know that a public member is accessible everywhere. On line P, C1's object is created. But is C1 visible in C2? C1 is public, so it can be accessed anywhere, including in C2. So, line P works. On line Q, F1 is called. F1 is public, so F1 can be accessed anywhere, including in C2. Line Q hence works. Line R uses variable a of C1. As you can see, a is public, so it is also accessible everywhere. Line R is thus valid. A quick note: here, C2 did not have to import C1 to use it. C2 can use C1 directly as they are in the same package, okay? So that's all about the public access specifier. Next comes the private access specifier. It is the opposite of public. A private member can only be used inside the class where it is created. If another class tries to access it, compilation fails, okay? We'll take the same example of C1 and C2. The only difference is members of class C1 are private. The variable a and method f1 are private. Do lines P, Q, and R work? A private member can be accessed only within the same class, while a public member is accessible everywhere. On line P, C1 is used in C2. Is that possible? Well, class C1 is public, so it is accessible everywhere, including class C2. So, line P works. On line Q, F1 is invoked. Look at F1. It is marked private in C1, right? As it is private, it can only be used in C1. It cannot be used outside the class C1 in C2. So, line Q is invalid and compilation fails, okay? Similarly, on line R, the instance variable a of class C1 is used in C2, but it is marked as private in C1. so it cannot be used outside C1 in any other class. Line R thus causes compilation error. So, this is how you will be expected to identify whether a code sample is valid or not in the exam, okay? Next comes the default access specifier. It provides much more visibility than private. A default member can be accessed anywhere in the same package, okay? For this access specifier, we don't explicitly write the word default. Instead, if any access specifier is not mentioned for a member, it means that member has default access specifier. Remember this. Similar example again, but this time, no access specifier is mentioned for variable A and method F1 of class C1. So, they have the default access specifier. Are lines P, Q, and R valid? C1 is public, so it can be accessed everywhere as well as in C2. Line P is valid. Next, C2 tries to access instance variable A and function F1 of C1. They both have default access specifier. Are C1 and C2 in the same package? Yes. Hence, lines Q and R work, okay? Does this work? Pause the video and have your answer ready. C1 and C2 are in different packages. Can C2 access C1 on line P? C1 is public and is visible everywhere, but can C2 access it? C1 is in package P1.P2. C2 is in package P1.P3. As class C1 is public, it is accessible everywhere, including in class C2. But as C1 and C2 are in different packages, C2 can use C1 in two ways, either using fully qualified name or by importing C1 and C2. Here, we are trying to access C1 and C2 without importing it. Import statement is missing. So, even though C1 is public, C2 cannot access C1 here, and compilation fails for line P. The lines Q and R use object of C1. Now, obviously, if C1 cannot be accessed in C2, lines Q and R are also invalid, okay? Okay, we imported the package P1.P2 in class C2. What happens now? Have your answer ready, then watch me solve it. As class C1 is public, it is accessible everywhere, but C1 and C2 are in different packages. Was C1 imported? Yes. Hence, line P is valid. On line Q, F1 is called. The method F1 in C1 has default access specifier, so it can be used anywhere in the same package as C1. But class C2 is in a different package, so compilation fails for line Q. Hence, line Q is invalid. The same applies to line R as variable A is default, okay? So, we've learned a lot of valuable information in this video. That's all for now. See you in the next video.